feel like this organization is in a good spot. They've obviously done it in the past, so I think they know what it takes and they know how to do it, and it's only a matter of time.
The Oklahoma City Thunder are going back to the NBA Finals.
I want to win the NBA championship. Like, it's always about winning for me.
One of the greatest regular seasons in NBA history. And now, for the first time, the NBA champion resides in Oklahoma City.
We did what it took this year to be champions, and we deserve this. We rose to the moment, and here we are.
Here's the man in the middle of it all. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has just completed one of the greatest seasons any player's ever had in NBA history. Let me give you 3 examples of that. In fact, let's start just with last night. He became the 5th player with 25 points and 10 assists in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Look at the company that he keeps. Jerry West, Walt Frazier, James Worthy, LeBron James. So he finished with a bang. Taking a step back, let's look at the postseason as a whole. SGA joined LeBron James in 2018 as the only 2 players in NBA history with at least 650 points and 150 assists in a single playoffs. LeBron's Cavs were swept by the Warriors in those finals. SGA, of course, wins the championship. And now you zoom out on his entire season. Since the MVP award was first handed out, which was in 1956, only 4 players have won the scoring title, the MVP, the title in the same season. They are Shaquille O'Neal, Lou Alcindor, of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, who did it 4 times, and now SGA, one of the great seasons that we have ever seen. And as we try and put it into some context, Windman, you know what I found myself thinking about last night? For the longest time, LeBron James was the best player in basketball. We have described LeBron James as the best player in the sport for a generation. In the last 5 years, we've changed our minds 3 times on who the best one is, right? It was when Giannis wins, he scores those 50 points in Game 6 of the Finals. Oh, my God, it's Giannis's league, the Greek freak. He's the best player. 2 years later, boom, Nikola Jokic wins the championship. He's one of the greatest centers of all time. He's already a top 10 player. It's Nikola Jokic's league. Boom. SGA, is it now his league? When we say who's the best player in basketball right now, is the answer Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
He's holding all the trophies. You have to give it to him. I think Jokic probably is thinking about a bunch of what ifs, both with what happened with that roster, what happened with health on that roster with Aaron Gordon. They lost in 7 games. They lost in this same situation. Wondering if he could have done that and looking forward to potentially seeing him again next year. I think it's a healthy challenge, but to the victor go the spoils. And, you know, my thing is, one of the things that I've learned 20 plus years covering the NBA, when you're the champ, it means never having to say you're sorry. You can say you're the best player, you got all the trophies, you got to come beat me. That's where he's at right now.
I think he's the best player on the best team. I don't think he's the best player in the league. I think that's either Giannis or Nikola Jokic. And I think that's okay to say. I think he's had a prolific year. Obviously, he's won an MLB, like Brian Windhorst just said. But I think top to bottom, when I look at all the skill sets, size, frame, height, athletic ability, all of it combined on the defensive end too, combined, I still say that's Giannis or Jokic.
Yeah.
That does not diminish how incredible SGA is, in my opinion.
Of course not, because of what he meant to his team. You know, think about that as well. And I'm with both of you in both ways. When you have all the trophies, you're the best player for that year. He had one of the best seasons, you just documented it, that you've ever seen. The face of the league conversation, though, don't get me started, because we don't have one. We have LeBron James, and that's it. We can't keep waiting for the next player to take it. We'll know. We'll know when that guy emerges. It could be him. You never know. It could start with him and from this year forward, and maybe it emerges. But when it comes to seasons and what he did, I think what's most remarkable about him is the humility he shows as such an individually great talent, and yet how that team is with each other. And when you look at blueprints of how to build a team, that's what you're hoping to have one day, is a team that is that unselfish. They care that much about each other's success. It's so hard to find. But that right there, to me, that's the sweet spot when it comes to building a team.
Keith, how about it? How about SGA?
Unbelievable season, man. He literally like took this young team and with this young nucleus and did things that people didn't expect. But in this situation, I'm going to go with Jay on this one, man. Yes, he was the best player on the best team this year. And again, he had a great season. I want to give him his flowers, but he is not the best player in the NBA. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA.
Okay, so whatever. I literally just threw that in a last-minute curveball, and it's not a quibble about this on the day after SGA wins the championship. Let's ask this. We just talked about Kevin Durant getting traded to the Houston Rockets. They were the team that finished second. They were sort of like the Thunder of a year ago, right? The Thunder burst onto the scene a year ago. Oh my goodness, look at this lofty record. They're so young. No one knows who half of them are. And they're not really going to be that good. They get knocked out in the second round. Here they are winning the title. Rockets were that team this year. Played a tough 7-game series against a very tested veteran Golden State team, obviously. And now they add Kevin Durant. So did a funny thing happen on the way to this OKC dynasty?
Well, so there's a few things that you could see that could challenge Oklahoma City from winning a number. One would be Jokic and the Nuggets roaring back. One would be a rise from the East, depending on what happens with Giannis and San Antonio. But the other thing I would say is the thing that makes this trade so interesting for Houston is they still have a number of highly valuable pieces that they can either let develop, and like Oklahoma City did, they held them together, or look to go hunting in the trade market again if a major player comes available. Whether it's somebody we can foresee today or somebody becomes available in 6 months or a year, because the reason at the start of this, they didn't want to do Durant. They didn't necessarily, it wasn't anything against him. They were like a 37-year-old with a bunch of 20-somethings. That doesn't fit. They couldn't say no to this because of the value proposition, and it leaves them so much more to play with going forward.
Don't count out the Lakers. Don't count out the Nuggets. Don't count out Minnesota. They're still knocking on the door as well.
Still in the West, absolutely.
Well,
And
but they need
Luka and
pieces, though,
LeBron.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
moves
but
need
that's
to
why
get
we're coming
made
up here.
July 1st.
Over the next
that's why
couple
we're
of
coming
weeks. That's why the win man is going to be invaluable as we work our way through the next few weeks. And as we've said here before, don't discount the possibility that the Greek Freak is involved in some of these conversations. It was a Charles Dickens kind of winner-take-all game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder, Tyrese Haliburton and the Pacers. Here we go. Jay Will, Haliburton starts so fast, looked so good early.
I mean, it had 9 points off 3 threes. Teams who were getting offensive rebounds, getting kickbacks out to him for relocation threes. And his team just plays better when he scores 20 points and more. The record's like 35-4.
And then devastation strikes. Wendy, you were in the building. Take us through what it was like as we watch this moment here with Haliburton. We'll take the play to the other end.
Yeah, so the crowd
That's not
cheers.
important.
The
Yeah.
crowd cheers because it's a transition dunk, and then they see how injured he is, and then they see that it's his leg. They all know the circumstances, and the crowd is absolutely gutted. Obviously, this is a high-energy moment that is completely derailed.
You see it.
By
Everyone,
how devastating that is.
everyone can see exactly what happens. Unfortunately, in sports today, we've become so familiar with this injury. We know what to look for, and we saw it there. So that's just awful. So now Pascal Siakam trying to rally his team on the bench. And Shanae, for that second quarter where both teams looked a little shaken, the Pacers were right there.
You have to credit not just in this game, NBA Finals Game 7, but the entire postseason. This team has operated fearlessly, and they go by their leader, Tyrese Haliburton, but the Thunder had it going on both ends.
Yeah, the Thunder would take over in the third. Here we are late in the first half. That was Hartenstein knocking down a shot to tie it.
Man,
This is
tough
hard
step back.
knocking that down. So the Pacers have a 1-point lead at halftime, but then Shanae mentioned it. In that third quarter is where OKC took over, led by SGA.
Threes. They hit 3 in a row. It was a tie score. They knocked down 3. You get this great bounce on one as well, and then you get this right here. This is the shot right here.
It is.
Where they just started. They get the confidence they needed. A 9-0 run. They were at an arm's length at that point, and their defense turned it on.
J-Dub with 20 last night, and here's the defense.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that third quarter, they had 18 points off of the turnovers in that frame alone. They are suffocating, they are smothering, and they're the best defense in the NBA for a reason.
And of course, the absence of Haliburton is a factor there, and you put it into context however you wish. That's SGA on his way to being the Finals MVP, knocking it down. The celebration is on for the first time since they were the Seattle Supersonics. This franchise hoists the Larry O'Brien Trophy, putting a finishing touch on one of the great seasons any team has ever had, and SGA, one of the great seasons any player has ever had. He's the 4th ever to win the scoring title and the MVP and the championship in the same year. You see the company, it's Shaq, it's Kareem, and it was Michael Jordan 4 times. When it was done, here was SGA with Lisa Salters.
A lot of hard work, a lot of hours in the gym. This isn't just a win for me. This is a win for my family. This is a win for my friends. This is a win for everybody that was in my corner growing up. This is a win for the fans, the best fans in the world. Love you guys.
All right, Markieff is with us all morning long as well. Chiney, you're the new voice here in this hour. Before we get to we haven't touched on the Haliburton injury in a while. We're going to get back to that, but we have not gotten your thoughts. Just first off on the champions, what SGA did this year, what OKC did this year.
Two things. He mentioned the best fans in the world. We've been in the arena multiple times in Oklahoma City. When I was watching on TV, you could see that every person in every seat was standing up. That's how much they care. That's how bad they wanted the championship. But then also, when he won Finals MVP, that's when you finally saw emotion, because SGA is someone that is cool, calm, collected. He don't break no sweat, right? But he held that Finals MVP up, and then he put out this huge sigh of relief. And that was a beautiful moment. You saw J-Dub crying. If you think about this squad, I came in learning basketball, watching the big three of OKC of Russ, James, and KD. And they did, that's a Hall of Fame group. They're all MVPs.
For sure.
This new iteration, it's wild how scary it is, how good they are for how young they are. At the age of 26, you listed what SGA has been able to do. Scoring title, MVP, Finals MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, best record. The sky is the limit for this group, but it's not just him. One thing Mark Dagno said to Scott Van Pelt really hit me. He said, this is a guy that allows his teammates to be great. Sometimes when you are one of the greatest gravitational pulls because you average 30-plus points per game, like you did in the regular season, you did the same thing in the finals, sometimes it's like a little bit of me ball. He's the opposite of that. He's we ball. He allows other people to be great. I'm excited about the future big three in OKC.
For sure. So we've touched on it all morning long. Could it be the beginning of a dynasty? We will get back to that. But it's been a while since we dove into, for the new audience joining us here, the devastation of the Haliburton injury. Wendy, you were in the building. Take us through it.
Yeah, you have to celebrate the Thunder for their spectacular championship run. They won 84 games this year. I mean, we're talking about one of the great seasons in NBA history. But I will never get over seeing Tyrese laying there, because he was off to such a great start in this game. It's potentially a historic performance. He gets 9 points in the first few minutes of the game. On the road, it's so hard to get going. He's got them going. He's feeling it. He's got Mark Daigneault on the bench yelling to his team, you've got to close out on Haliburton. He's hot. That's what was happening there. Shai was closing out to him. He was about to drive to the basket, potentially to get a basket and a foul. And then you have this moment happen. It's going to be, fair or not, one of the great what-ifs we always remember because of how gutting it was.
As a former player, and we've seen this multiple times, seen it with KD, we've seen it with Jason Tatum, we've seen it with Dame. When he went down, the first thing he did was start slapping the ground. Yeah. I knew it was a torn Achilles. I think everybody felt it right there in that situation because he knew. You know, a lot of times when you have these types of injuries and you get calf strains, we hear Steph deciding not to play. When I see chatter on social media, people then saying, hey, you got to play through it. I'm like, well, not so sure you do have to play through it. Aaron Gordon played through it. He played through it. He was okay. But this is what leaders, fighters do. You have your own decision to make. You put your body on the line each and every day. And now we're talking about a guy that may be out for the next year. So, yes, OKC deserves all the praise. Gave that to him in the first hour. But now you're talking about a guy that could sit out the next year of the season.
Jay, well, that's exactly how I did mine, watching Hallie. You know, just a pushback on a cut, trying to go aggressive, you know, to the basket. But I do think you mentioned something that's really important, the mentality. Because, you know, as athletes, you understand you side up for these types of circumstances. And my goodness, someone asked me yesterday, like, how would you grade the Pacers season? I would say, I'm proud of this squad. This is a team that goes as Hallie goes with this fearless mentality. They feel like they're always in a game. So when he exits, first of all, the beautiful shot of his entire team there, when he exits, now they still feel like they have a fighting chance because it's a mind over matter thing.
But from that point forward, watching the way the Pacers closed the half, the Nembhard shot to take the lead at the half, you're leaning forward now in your chair saying, can they do this? Like, what an inspiring story this would be if they could somehow find a way with their leader out to pull off a win. And there was no doubt in my mind, I thought they could do it. It wasn't as if there's no chance they can win this game. I thought it made it even more compelling. Can they win it? And up until about 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, it looked like they were still right there. Score is tied. Couple of threes made, and you could see their heart kind of come out of it. Obi Toppin referenced it. But still, what an emotional moment, but also showed you how much that team, well, you said be proud of that Pacer team. Their depth, they still had a chance despite the fact they lost.
Let's be as clear as we can be. There are no asterisks in sports. There is no asterisk here. The Thunder are deserving champions, in the same way that the Raptors were a few years ago. One of the keys to winning a championship in any sport is remaining healthy, a little bit of good fortune, all of that. So none of this is to take anything away from OKC or their title. But Markieff, can you describe from a player's perspective the emotions that you go through when you see your leader go down? And Tyrese Haliburton is their best player. They've been the kind of team that as he goes, so go they. What emotions go through his teammates when he's lying there pounding the hardwood in pain?
I just think you just feel sorry for the moment, right, man? A player of that magnitude not being able to finish the moment that he was in, right? He started off the game so well, and if you take it back to Game 6, he played well also, so you didn't really see, like, you kind of almost forgot about the injury, right, because of the pace he was playing at, because of how good he started the game and how good it was last game, right? But the emotion in the second quarter when it happened, that's what the Indiana Pacers were playing now. They was playing high off of emotion, right? But once it was settled down, because OKC was kind of affected too, but once it was settled down, OKC just put it on them, man. You don't have your best decision maker, your go-to guy on the court. And then once the third quarter started, once OKC put it on them, there was no way up, there was no way out of it. Nobody could actually score a bucket but TJ McConnell. Literally, he was the only person that scored a bucket from the 8-minute mark in the third quarter for 10 whole minutes. So you could see them unravel, and rightfully so. Like, I didn't think they had a chance once he went down, but it was good to see. It was good to see Indiana fight in some sort of way, but it was over once Haliburton went down.
I brought this up last week, and I said in the moment, I don't even like putting it out into the ether but you can't help but think about what happened with Kevin Durant in the finals that year, and I will remember for the rest of my life you flying back with him and then coming on our show, doing the whole show the next morning after you had been there. How would you describe the similarities of the circumstances and your recollections of this, one of the most memorable and terrible moments in NBA history?
Number one, the irony of the fact that KD goes to Houston on a day that this happens yesterday, first. Secondly, just the feeling being in that building next to Rich Kleiman, who is his manager of 35 Ventures and obviously has been helping orchestrate a lot of this stuff, just like the mouth wide open that please don't be that. Please don't be that. And then the biggest thing probably is post-wise being with KD and with their team and literally hearing them talk about the diagnosis of, like, strained calf and what goes into that and the probability of it tearing an Achilles or not. And like Shanae was talking about, playing through that, making the decision in that moment to say, I am willing to put it on the line and play through if this injury occurs.
I mean, the circumstances were, those of us who were doing this job will remember, Kevin Durant wasn't playing. He had sat out multiple games with that injury, and there were people questioning him.
Sat out the whole Western Conference Final.
And there were people questioning him, right? I mean, there were probably
questioning
not
his
people
toughness,
of credibility, but
same thing with Tyrese, right? Like, oh, he's kind of soft, or he doesn't play the right way.
Because they fell behind 3-1 in the series to the underdog Raptors. It was like, can Kevin come back and rescue them?
Yeah.
That was the expectation in that moment that night.
And I think the difference in the narrative going into the NBA Finals and like the last few games was that Tyrese had already been the hero.
Yeah.
I think people were already saying, hey, you can sit. Like, if you don't play, we understand, because you're learning from the past and watching from instances of Kevin Durant, which is why I commend him for pushing through, because he understood I would not be able to live with myself with a shot at an NBA championship, knowing that how he started the game was sensational. Like, he felt like he was so close. And I'm not going to lie, for Game 6, a lot of us were like, we don't think this team can do it with him less than 100%. And how did he produce? They probably played one of their best games we've seen this season. So I think it's a tough turnaround.
And he played 24 minutes in that game, too, so I feel like he got ample rest.
Look, I mean, these are the things that happen, unfortunately, and it will be part of the history of this game.
I'm on fire.